I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, and this is your cruise news update. Today we have an update on the case of Anna Kepner, the teen girl that was found dead inside her Carnival cabin. And have you ever wondered how clean your cruise ship really is? We have the latest cleanliness rankings by cruise line from CDC. And then Carnival came out with another change to their loyalty problem. We're going to cover all that and more. Our first story today is about the Carnival Dream. Now, you may have seen some of the viral pictures on the internet. One of their lifeboats actually broke into two pieces and fell into the water while the Carnival Dream was docked at the port in Cozumel. Now, Carnival issued a statement that they were doing safety drills, which anybody who's been on a cruise ship knows that when these ships get into ports and most of the passengers get off, they run different safety drills and checks continuously to keep making sure that all their safety procedures are being run well and that everything's in good order. So while the crew of the Carnival Dream was conducting a safety drill and lowering an unmanned lifeboat into the water, it got stuck on something and the tip of it cracked off and the rest of the boat fell into the water. You can see the pictures here. Now, nobody was hurt in the incident, but these fiberglass lifeboats are meant to withstand a lot of conditions and pressure. It's rather odd that it just had a piece break off of it during a routine drill. And when the Carnival Dream left Cozumel, they left the lifeboat behind. So they sailed back out into the open waters, one lifeboat short. Now, this seemed odd to some of the passengers on board, but actually most cruise ships have 25% more lifeboat capacity than the maximum passenger capacity. So obviously they did the calculations and figured that they still had plenty of lifeboat capacity for everybody on board. So you may have heard of the story about Anna Kepner, the teen girl who was on a cruise on the Carnival Horizon with her father, her stepmother, and her stepbrother, and was found dead underneath her bed in her cabin. Now, the FBI is still investigating, but they just released the official cause of death as asphyxiation by an arm bar over her neck. They also said in reports that there was no sign of drugs, alcohol, or sexual assault involved in this murder. The stepbrother is reportedly still being investigated as the prime suspect. And the Carnival Horizon just can't stay out of the news. They're having some propulsion problems now, and they can't get up to full cruising speed. Now, this affected last week's cruise that got back into port 8 hours late. So they couldn't turn the ship around for the new guests who ended up losing the day on their cruise vacation. Now, Carnival did proportionately refund these passengers their money, but the problem has still not been fixed. The Horizon had to cancel their itinerary stop at Grand Cayman this week in order to stay on schedule. And there's no word as to what the real issue is or when it will be resolved. So if you have plans to cruise on the Carnival Horizon in the near future, you could be looking at some itinerary changes or even departure date changes. Now, I've been on a lot of cruise ships, and most of the time they seem very clean, but sometimes I wonder what exactly goes on behind the scenes and how clean these ships really are. Well, the CDC came out with their latest ratings on cruise lines and their cleanliness. Let's take a look. So you have some of the more premier lines like Viking, Oceania, Virgin. Those are the top 3 cruise lines in terms of cleanliness. And among the more economical lines, you can see Margaritaville comes in at number 5, followed by Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, and MSC. Unfortunately, Carnival comes in at number 11, followed by a few more upscale lines that didn't perform very well. And then this week we found out about some more bad actors at sea. Now, there were 4 crew personnel in Port Canaveral who were detained and then deported by the US government. Now, it's not known which cruise ship or cruise line that they were on. However, searches of their rooms, their cabins, were conducted, and materials were found in there that they shouldn't have had. And this is really just a sober reminder to take care at sea. While cruise ships and most cruise lines are completely safe. There are some bad actors out there, and especially if you have kids, young kids, or teenagers, make sure they're aware that they're not just in their own world on these cruise ships. These cruise ships are entire floating cities, and there's all kinds of people on board. I personally have seen many kids running around cruise ships at 11 o'clock at night. But we are seeing more and more stories like this of crew members being detained and deported for having pornographic or child-related materials that they shouldn't have. And then on a lighter note, on the Carnival Magic this week, there was a passenger who somehow got past security. A portable playset with a canopy, about 4 feet by 6 feet wide. And he tried to set that up on the Lido deck of the ship, right in the middle of where everything's going on, just staking out his territory and setting up this humongous thing. What do you think about that? Now, of course, once the staff on the Magic found out about this, they rightly shut it down. But can you imagine if everybody just started bringing their own tents and canopies like they do on the beaches and setting them up on cruise ship decks? I mean, I guess this is another thing they're going to be adding to the banned list soon. Now, for anyone out there who is mobility impaired, Carnival Cruise Lines has doubled down on their policy to enforce that if you bring a scooter or wheelchair of any type on board, it must be able to fit through your cabin door. Now, some of these scooters have been too big to fit in these narrow doors, and Carnival is no longer allowing passengers to board with these oversized scooters. Now, if you've booked an accessibility room, that's a different story. But if you booked a standard cabin, you will not be allowed to bring a scooter or wheelchair on board that cannot collapse and fit inside the room. And finally, Carnival Cruise is backpedaling on their loyalty program change again. Now, when they initially came out with this, there were a lot of people upset because they were going to lose their loyalty status unless they continued spending a large amount of money on Carnival cruises every couple of years. So the first thing that Carnival did is they made one change. They said if you reach our diamond level, which is their top tier, you'll be locked in for life. So anybody at that level will not lose their status regardless of how often or frequently they cruise or how much money they spend. However, now they have actually extended the time for passengers to reach that status. So the new date is September 1st, 2026, which is 3 months later than it originally was. So this new program is not going to start until September of 2026, which means if you're near that diamond status, you have 3 more months to get there and lock that in for life. Now, if you enjoyed watching this version of our cruise news update, or you just like watching our original cruising footage, make sure you subscribe to our channel and get all of our updates. And if you're even thinking of booking a cruise in the near future, check out this video here that could save you thousands.